Hello everybody, this is Winterbrose. In this primitive workshop, we're going to present the torus. This primitive shape has a lot to offer. As you can see, it's a kind of a donut shape or a ring shape, depending on how you want to look at it. We're going to show you some stuff you may need to know to use this to its maximum within your 3D projects. Of course, the first step is going to be able to create this primitive shape in your scene. So you're going to go to the File menu and you're going to select Create, New Primitive. And then when you get the pop-up, the type will be Torus. And of course, then we'll discuss the other parameters here in a minute. Right now, we just want to go ahead and show you the Torus actually in DAZ Studio. So here we got DAZ Studio 4.10 running. So we're going to go ahead and create a new primitive. Right there, create new primitive on the File menu. And there's Torus, we already have it selected. Now you have other shapes that are available in here. So if yours comes up with some other shape name like plane by default, just click that little box somewhere and go into your select Torus. And like I said, we'll go over these other parameters in a moment. So for now, let's just click accept. And there you go. We have the Torus shape. You can see it's like a ring shape. And over here in the scene tab, you'll see it's got a name of Torus. Now, however, we'll just go ahead and let you know. We'll go ahead and create a second Torus really quick. We won't change any of the parameters. And now you can see in the scene tab, we have two Toruses, the regular Torus and the Torus with the number 2. However, in the viewport, it looks just like ones. It's because when you load that Torus with the exact same specifications, it's going to occupy the exact same 3D space in your scene. So what we had to do is we wanted to see them both. We got one of them's going to have to be moved a little bit, up, down, left, right, whatever. So that's how you would load a Torus in your scene. So now let's go ahead and go over a couple of the parameters so you can get the most out of the Torus when you use it. But the first thing we're going to discuss is the orientation within the 3D space, and this is done with the primary axis parameter. And of course, you can see them listed down below. X positive is going to have it standing up from front to back in the scene. Y positive will have it laying flat on the ground. And of course, if you use Z positive, it's going to be standing up in the scene left to right. And also, once you create it that way, well, let's go ahead and go back to DAZ Studio real quick. Let me show you all three of those really quick. So here we're back in DAZ Studio. We've started with a new scene. We went in and cleaned it up, sorry. So we're going to go create new primitive. And we'll start at the top here with X positive. And we'll create the first Torus with that orientation. And you can see it's going from front to back. So then let's go ahead and create a second Torus. And this one we will create on the Y positive orientation. And you can see it's laying flat on the ground. Let me go ahead and get those in the viewport a little better. And then we'll go ahead and create us a third Torus, and we'll use the Z positive on this one. And it should be going from left to right, and there you go. Actually, that's a cool little shape we just created. But so that's how the orientation works when you load the Torus into the scene. And so you'll and also that will affect when you go to the Torus. So let me go ahead and separate these really quick. I'm going to move them over, separate them out a little bit. Bring this one here to the right. So what I want to show you is, let's go ahead and get to the front view, zoom out a little bit. And there you go, you can see the front to back, the laying on the ground, and of course the left to right. So, but that orientation is also important because if we go here and select this Torus, the first Torus we created, let's go with, we'll just go down here to scaling really quick. So if we wanted to change the size on the X scale, you can see it's that way. And if we go to this Torus, second Torus, and we do the X scale, you'll see it's in the same direction on the X axis. And of course the third Torus, it'll be the same thing. So you got to remember the orientation will also change which direction the axes are referred to or oriented to that actual Torus. So they have different effects on them. So just so you know, basically when you load it in, you'll want to load it to the basic direction you want it, and then you'll just play around with the other parameters as needed. The other important thing you need to know when you're doing your parameters is the mesh sizing. And basically, the overall size of your Torus and its basic shape that it loads into the scene is going to be determined by the major diameter and the minor diameter. And of course, the number of segments and number of sides would be the mesh. But let's go over those diameter settings. The inner space would be the space that you see in the center of the Torus. And this is going to be how wide you want this ring to be from here to here. And of course, the minor diameter is going to be how big the torus body itself will be. So you can get smaller and larger shapes doing that. So we'll go to DAZ Studio and we'll demonstrate that for you. So we're here back in DAZ Studio. We're just going to go ahead and create a new primitive again. We still have our torus. We're going to put these on the Y positive so they're laying on the ground. So we'll just go ahead and start with these default settings we had. 1 meter for the major and 0.1 for the minor in meters. Let's go ahead and then we're going to go to a top view so we can take a quick look at that. So in DAZ Studio, each of these blocks represents 1 meter by 1 meter. So we'll go ahead and move our torus over here, and you can, let's just kind of try to line it right up. You can see the inner diameter is 1 meter across. And if you can imagine, we'd have 0.1 or 1/10 of a meter for the body size, and you can see that's about 1/10 of that space from here to there. So that's 1 meter across. That's so that width of that body is about 1/10 of a meter. So, but to go ahead and demonstrate that, let's go ahead and we'll pull in a new one. We'll go ahead and leave the 1 meter major diameter, but let's make the thickness of this, let's make it 1/2 of a meter and create a new torus like that. Now see how that, so oops, let me change to torus too, sorry about that. So let me just slide that over. So you can see that inside diameter is still about 1 meter across. However, if you can look between these lines, actually here's the size we got to select. You can see that's about 1/2 of a meter for the thickness of the body of the torus. So that's how you can create the different elements in size for your different torus when you add them to your scene. Now, of course, we're if we went to a texture shaded mode, that's what you would see. We probably should have started with that. I apologize, but we like to. We're going to be going over the mesh here in a minute, so we wanted to go to the wire texture shaded so you can see what we're going to discuss next. So let's go back to that other screen. So the other two parts are going to be the number of segments and the number of sides. You can see them down here on the bottom, and so those are going to determine how big. Excuse me, the actual mesh that defines the torus. So the number of segments will be how many of these, how big around these, how many shapes, how many polygons or faces are going to be used to define the torus going all the way around its diameter. And of course the number of sides, that would be that, you know, in the circle shape here. The number of sides would be how many polygons or faces are going to use to go around the actual body and determine how many are defined by that. And if you look at this torus we have on screen here, you see it's kind of a little bit blocky. If you can see, like, you can see the changes in shape as it goes around, and the lines change in shape. So, but also the more definition you give it, the more segments and sides, of course, it's going to make it a larger object to handle within the 3D space. So it all depends on what your purpose is for the torus when you're using it in your designs. So let's go back and show you in DAZ Studio how those segments and sides can make a difference. So here we're back in DAZ Studio. So let's go ahead and when we start with a new scene again, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to go like to a size of 0.2 meters for that and leave it at 1 meter across. So there's the one we created originally, and we're going to just kind of get the focus here. Well, let's go ahead and go to the top view, and then we're just going to slide him to the left a little bit, and we're going to show you another one here in a minute. Let me just go ahead and get the scene set up a little more, and we're going to go ahead and go to texture shaded mode. So when you look at this torus, you can kind of see the little angles where it changes to go around on the inside and outside. You can see like flat portions. And that's because we didn't use a high-res number of segments and sides. So let's go here and we'll try it again. This time, though, we'll keep it the exact same size, but we're going to change the number of segments used to define the actual mesh of this torus. So here we'll just go with like 96. That'd be 4 times as many. And we'll go ahead and we'll tighten this up a little bit with, like, let's say 36. We'll create that new one. And now if you look at this one, how it's a lot smoother. It looks almost like a circle. You don't really see the edge changes going around it. We'll go to perspective view, and you can also, it's the same thing if you look at you can kind of see the body, how these you can see the lines that form. This one only had 12 sides, where this one has 36. And you see the body is almost like a perfect, oops, let me get up there again, perfect circle on that torus. So that makes a big difference. Now, of course, when you use these, anything with higher definition number of polygons is going to take a little more processing power and stuff. So like I said, it depends on your end use, what your intent for the torus is in your project. So when you're designing it, you'll want to make sure you pick the right one. And the last step is actually changing the shape of the torus to get what your end goal is. You can see here, basically what you'll use is the X, Y, and Z scaling to modify how the shape of the torus is within the scene. And you can see these three different models here, the torus in the middle. And of course on the left we kind of made this, we elongated, could be like a blade or something, or maybe a wing set for a futuristic spaceship. And on the right you can see it looks like a tire of some sort, or maybe a thicker ring, depending on what your intent is. And we'll go back into Desk Studio really quick, and we'll show you how once you add the torus to your scene, you can modify its scaling to get some various shapes. So here we started a new scene in Desk Studio again. And let's go ahead and add in a new primitive shape, torus. We're just going to go ahead and leave that one that was really refined. It's got a larger mesh, but it'll be good. So we'll select it in the Scene tab, go to the Parameters tab if you're not already there, and down here in the Scaling, we're going to just make some changes. Let's take the X scale. You can see how we can get it. We can change it out like that. Let's see if we can. Let's go to Perspective View here, so we can see it a little better. You can see how we flatten it out, and it's kind of like a big ring. And you can combine these, you know. Let's just take the Y scale, and let's say we want to thicken it up a bit. Let's say it's the front of maybe, I can visualize that as the like the front part of maybe on a Star Trek ship, the warp drive engines you can see, or even the scoop that's sometimes underneath, like the original Star Trek ship. You could that's a nice shape there. So you can get all kinds of cool things by changing these scales. And of course we can also narrow it down a little bit, the Z scale. So you can see that adjusting the different scales you can do so many different things with the torus. I mean, it's a really good shape. It's all the primitive shapes, you can do so much with them. But this is just a start on how the torus works and things you can do with it. Hope you might find some use for this. We think it's a really nice shape to work with. We hope you enjoyed this Primitive Workshop presentation. Please visit our website to see more exciting tutorials and products we have to offer. A lot of them are free and some are paid for, but we think you'll like what you see. Have a great day.